General Ham's priorities obviously are SOCAFRICA's priorities. They're the Horn of Africa, number one, Northwest Africa, number two, and then the Gulf of Guinea region, number three. And then what you'll hear referred to a lot as the rest of Africa. And those are, in fact, Special Operations Command Africa's areas of focus as well. Specifically, though, as it pertains to the terrorist fight, the counterterrorism efforts that Special Operations Command Africa is responsible for, is kind of the focus in each of those regions on what we're bringing to the fight. Without good security, you can't have good governance and economic development. Likewise, security means nothing if you don't have good governance and if you don't have economic prosperity. So the three are really mutually dependent. We learned this with great difficulty in Vietnam, that you simply can't have one without the other, and they are mutually dependent in order to bring about real change. So first you have to establish security in order to be able to let those other things develop. But the cautionary note, as we learned in Vietnam, is that once you have this security established, rapid on the heels of that better be good governance. You better be able to project the government to the people. And you better be able to provide economic security and prosperity for the populace. So that's the message. Obviously, you're not going to be able to go dig wells in an area where people are shooting at you. So the security's got to come first. These forces have deployed multiple times in multiple conflicts. Prior to 9/11, SOF was not organized, trained, and equipped to operate like this. So it's put a significant strain on the force. There's been recognition both on the previous administration and this administration that we need to better develop SOF. So in addition to more manpower and things, Special Operations Forces is also being reshaped to be able to conduct these more longer-term sustained operations. What that portends for AFRICOM is really a little bit unknown. We are hopeful that it means a little bit of a dividend our way. As I mentioned earlier, AFRICOM is at the cutting edge of a significant problem set that if we don't do anything about it now, it's going to be a more significant problem later. So if we can get in there with a very small, light, lean footprint now, we will probably be able to shape the future in such a way that it's less violent, more secure for the populace, and eventually well-governed economic prosperity will prevail. But we need to get after that now. We can't wait until the safe haven is established vis-a-vis Afghanistan, where we're now compelled to act in a more conventional way. So that's what AFRICOM is hopeful for. Again, having endured a decade of sustained deployment operations, the force is tired. So we need to be able to make best effect in Africa, but giving those forces time to refit, recoup, and be prepared to sustain this fight in Africa. They're beneficial to the African partners. That's our whole reason for doing them. Now that we have interests in those, obviously I just said our primary interest is ensuring that these are African exercises. As I mentioned in my remarks, Africa nations planned this exercise with Mali in the lead. That's our primary goal. But while the capabilities of those host nation forces are starting to develop and emerge and they start to become more capable at getting after the fight themselves, we want to learn more about the environment and understand how we are being effective. So part of our goals for Flintlock is to, after demonstrating the capabilities of the host nation forces to provide security for the populace, is to understand what the populace thinks about that. Are they positive about that? Do they feel indifferent about it? So that's what we're interested in seeing coming out of Flintlock, in addition to seeing, how the host nations perform. If you establish security in a region, and the people feel that they can go about their lives and achieve economic independence on their own, then that has to be demonstrated. Otherwise, it's so what? If the people see lots of military folks roaming the streets, then you get into this nebulous question of that we found in Iraq: is this occupation or is this security? So you walk that fine line. Underpinning all security efforts, there has to be something else. There has to be the governance or the economic prosperity to follow. Otherwise, the populace become indifferent or even hostile to it. I used Iraq as an example. I can use a hypothetical to kind of demonstrate my point. Would be in some of these very far remote areas around the Trans-Sahel, where it takes you literally days, what would take us hours in a Western developed nation, to travel from any one place to another place because there are no paved roads. And if the weather's bad, but guess what? You're delayed, another day. So how does the government project its influence to those regions? It's quite a challenge. So if we establish security in those areas, there better be something that the populace sees other than, okay, lots of military guys running around. You see what I'm saying? So that there has to be the so what to follow. If after establishing that security, markets suddenly spring up, or where there previously were markets and none had existed for years, suddenly those markets reestablish themselves. People feel secure enough to go and either provide for themselves or provide for their family. Then we've demonstrated success. But absent that, then you've really not achieved your objective. You've simply deployed troops. I'm not sure if we're winning or losing the fight, to be quite honest, because we're not there. We're not where we need to be able to make that assessment. I can tell you that where we do have access in the region, and where we have access is very limited, very, very limited. For North Africa, for example, you can lay 2 of the United States over the entire area and still not cover it. It's a vast expanse of undeveloped region. And we have access in very few areas. So our optic is literally a soda straw. But where we do have those soda straws, we see some ruminations that our intentions are good with the populace. The populace recognize that. Likewise, we recognize or we understand that the populace feels maybe not fully appreciative of their host nation forces, but at least they understand that they're not, bad intended. So where we do have access, I say yes, we are. Where we don't have access, I don't know. But I can suspect the worst because the region is really a free rein for Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and that's a problem.